Hi, welcome back to East Oak Studio free video series. I'm Michael Klein, and this is part 2 of optical form rendering versus conceptual. Here I have a little block of clay that is going to be my subject matter that I'm going to jump into right away, because the idea of this video is transitioning from how we typically paint, which is painting what you see, to making nature do what, or sorry, making your painting do what you want it to do, as opposed to copying nature. So I'm going to block in this hunk of clay here. It'll take me just a minute to get it light enough and in context with, because there's gray paint here. This is wet paint from a previous demo that I did on the sphere. If you haven't seen that video, you can click the link, which ought to guide you to be able to watch that video as well. That's part 1. So here I'm just kind of blocking in this value that's facing the light. Still, it's a little bit dark, it's gray. I want to make sure that it's lighter color clay. So I'm going to keep adding white. Basically, I'm removing the gray paint and adding cleaner paint, which would then flip it up and make it face our light source. I'm going to go a little bit more. I'm adding raw umber to the mix as I'm doing this. So there we start to get, it's getting closer. Now, in the world of optical copying, you would say, well, this is too cold and it's too dark. So you have to keep keying up the value to match what you're looking at. And that's not always the best way to approach a scenario. This is its own world, so it has a context of values that you're gonna, it's gonna be much more compressed than what nature is. If I keep bumping the light up, then it's gonna compete with some of the areas that I want to try to tell the story where it's flipping up closest to the light source. So by actually keeping it lower at this stage, I can go in and I can start to see this is facing more of the light than this. So it's grabbing on to my light source up to the left. So it's coming in, and that's most perpendicular to the light. So I would actually want to make sure that this on my picture is the brightest at this point. And then it turns down again. I want to make sure though. So there's, I can lift up paint actually if I'm having a problem with getting it too light because there was dirty paint underneath. I can go back to the white of my panel and make sure that I'm getting this bright enough, because this is going to be important to set the stage for the rest of the picture. Go back, grab some clean white. There, it's starting. Now, on the shadow side, I go in with a dark and start to put down this shadow over here. Here. Now it tucks back further behind, and there's less light entering into the cast shadow. So that's going to actually go pretty dark back there. So there's reflected light in this area. So the softening effect of the shadow occurs as more reflected light. Now, the big kind of lesson that I want to be able to discuss here is how to make your picture, your painting, have 3 dimension and how to exist in the picture plane. So when I'm looking at nature, I see a cast shadow, tiny cast shadow, on the little form here, the little divot of clay that comes across like this. So then it catches the light. This is hard because this is a quick demo, but then it catches the light here, it scoops in, and it grabs, it flips up and starts to receive more light, so it has to be whiter there. And then same way again, it tips under, and there's a little bit, that's too much. There's a little bit of a cast shadow that occurs in the clay right here. So if I go with dark edge, so you get the idea that this, it may not be perfect yet, but this is, there's a little bit of cast shadow happening here, and then the area where it's lighter, the light is bouncing off of that surface and catching, so it's reflecting more of the light back to you. It's facing up. So I'm not just copying it saying, oh, it's lighter. I'm actually trying to feel where these forms are occurring. There's a little bit of light on this. Okay. So due to time, this is going to be kind of difficult to be able to fully express this concept, because cast painting, this kind of still life painting, usually takes a long time, and I want to get these concepts kind of handed off to you in a quick way. So again, we'll do it with this little divot here, go in with the cast shadow, put the cast shadow down, then the side plane here, that gets a little bit darker. Then it receives more light at the peak of it. I'm going to go back over to my light, clean my brush, grab some more white paint, and make sure that this tips up. Okay. Now this is kind of a much grayer picture than what I typically do. So it's because of this wet base. What I want to transition into now is to show you that instead of copying what I'm looking at, I want to create a hole in my lump of clay. So I'm going to take a shadow, and this is the difference between copying and inventing space. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to use this information and say, okay, I know what a cast shadow looks like. So if I were to invent the space on my painting, I'm going to put a dark hole here, okay? So that's a dark hole that's going far in. So that has to be a deep, it can't be a shallow divot like this. It has to be a deep hole going into the clay. So it's not up here now. But the idea is that if I can manipulate nature and understand how nature works, then you have the freedom to express yourself and to maybe add something or to create something that isn't up there. So by having this little divot, then, so the clay is being pushed off to the side, and then there's going to be a little transition out of the shadow hole. So this will get softer. Okay? But then there's also going to be a little bit of light from the clay pushing, coming out of the hole, pushing off to the left. It's going to create a little bit of a ridge and get the slightest bit lighter on that left side as well, because the light's coming in like this and it's catching a little bit of the light here around where that little hole has occurred. So this transition there. So now, seeing that there was no hole there, I didn't copy it, but now what I want to do is I want to create the hole in the cast. So then you go and you press into the cast, and so now the hole in the cast, you have this divot that goes all the way back. It casts the shadow on itself, so it's far enough back so that the reflected light is no longer bouncing up and around and inside. So you actually get a true shadow at the back of that hole. The only thing I didn't, when you create nature and you paint things in your painting that you're not looking at, there's always more information in nature. So rather than relying on just your imagination, then you can say, well, where I was wrong, what I didn't account for was the fact that the light is pitched higher and that there's going to be a little bit of light in this hole there. So then now the back of the shadow goes back and there's a little bit of light here. But you can see how you can start to create space in your picture as opposed to just copying it. So I hope that was helpful. This is to wrap up the series on optical form rendering versus conceptual form rendering. I hope this helps. You can check out our videos at our website, eastoakstudio.com, and leave your comments and suggestions below. Thanks a lot. See you next time.